Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Gramgrace deck profile for post-generation Dragenesis. Big thanks to my buddy Anthony for letting me borrow his Gramgrace deck for the video. Gramgrace was from the Cardfight Vanguard Switch game. With the release of Gramgrace and Favreneel's new support from the Generation Dragenesis booster set, I figured an update was due for both of these decks. I'll get to Favreneel eventually. Just wanted to start off with the main character's deck, Gramgrace being the Keter option of being able to give power to the back row with the Persona Ride, and then also have additional strength with your back row center rear guard. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Ride deck, we have the Energy Generator with our starter being Starting Magic, Star Lily. When wrote upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Pink Moth Girl Maple. Just having the option to call her from the drop zone is a big help with setting up rear guards in this deck, and then also being able to make use of our grade 2, which is Divine Sister Gatobausk. On Vanguard, when you would ride from the Ride deck, you can ride with the Soul Blast instead of choose a card from your hand, discard it, giving you the perfect chance to Soul Blast the Maple for the deck as well, with our grade 3 being the new Sword Saint Knight Dragon Emperor Gramgrace Sieg, having the copy in the Ride deck, and additionally also having the 3 additional copies in the main deck as well. With this card, when you Persona Ride, it also increases the power of your back row units, and on Vanguard, once per turn, you can Soul Blast one, choose one of your back row center rear guards, and it gets continuous rear guard. This unit can attack from the back row and gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, you can Energy Blast 3, and that unit in this unit get critical +1 until end of turn. So not only do you have the pressure of your Vanguard attack to hit, but you also have the pressure of that back row rear guard as well. And on the Vanguard, at the end of the battle, your back row rear guard attack, you can put that unit in the soul, put a card into the soul. If you put a card in the soul, draw a card at the end of that turn, making up for that back row unit by giving you a card back into your hand, so you have full use of all of your rear guards, and then the defense in your hand to use also. Other grade 3s include 2 copies of Knight of Soaring Blade, Fernball. From the back row center rear guard, at the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 1, discard a card from your hand, choose one of your Vanguards with Gramgrace in its card name, and it gets 10,000 power, and drive +1 to end of turn. So just having the added pressure for your Vanguard to go into triple drive, along with the initial critical as well. By using the once per turn, you can have the plus power and critical for this unit, and then also the additional power of your Gramgrace going in with triple drive and that additional critical as well. For the grade 2s, we are running 4 copies of Knight of Soaring Refinement, Defin. When your grade 3 or greater unit in the center column attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Gramgrace in its card name, that attacking unit gets +5 power until end of battle. And in the front row rear guard, when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Gramgrace in its card name and your units in the center column attack 2 or more times this turn, counterblast 1, and this unit gets +15 to the end of that battle, having additional strength for your back row rear guard attack, and then also the use of that center column. So if your Vanguard attacked and then your back row center rear guard attack, that counts as the 2 attacks to be able to get the additional power thanks to Defin. We're also running 4 of the new Knight of Rampage, Adolf. On rear guard, during the battles you attacked, when your opponent would call cards from hand to the guard circle, they must call a number of cards equal to this unit's critical or more at the same time. So if you have this card get the additional critical off of your Vanguard skill, it can just make all the more difficult for your opponent to guard against your back row center rear guard attack if you have the additional criticals, or if you give an additional critical to this unit before it attacks, you could also just have your opponent have to throw down more and more cards for them to be able to guard with. And also the 3 copies of Knight of Rendering Flash, Cabrera. When it's placed on rear guard, counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, reveal it, call to rear guard if it's grade 2 or less unit, and put into your hand if it's not. Just search power. If you need a grade 3 for the Persona Ride, Cabrera can help to search that card, or just to fill out more and more of your rear guard circles, depending on what you reveal off the top of your deck. And the more cards you put into the Soul, the easier you can build up with your Gramgrace to do so, to give you the power to use for the Soul Blast with Cabrera as well. We're also running the 3 copies of Drilling Angel to finish off the grade 2 lineup as well. You just have the additional pressure of putting a card from drop into the soul. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose the 1 card with the same name as that, put in the soul for the cost, and call it to rear guard. So if you know what's out of your deck already, you'll know what to put in the soul with Drilling Angel, and then what to be able to set up on your rear guard as well. For the grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Knight of Gale, Saint Blugar. When on rearguard during your turn for your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, it gets plus 5,000 power. So it's just a 13k power on its own. If it has to be your unit that you call to the back row center to attack, at least it'll be hitting for enough power to be able to hit against your opponent's Vanguard. So a good backup option to all the other ones we spoke of so far. If not, it's just a good 13k booster for your other rearguard columns. For of the Knight of Cleansing Blade Rual. When this unit boosts, if you Energy Blast 3 or more at the same time for the cost of your ability this turn, it gets plus 5. So if you use your Gramgrace Sieg's ability, you have another 13k power grade 1. So on its own, or with Sin Blugar, it could be a 26k column altogether if you have to call these rearguards together, or it could also just be another additional 13k for another rearguard that hasn't attacked yet. And also 3 copies of Knight of Pulucidity, Margano. On rearguard, when this unit boosts, if you have a grade 3 or grade Vanguard, you may have this unit get plus 5 to end a battle. If you do, at the end of that battle, put it into the soul, building up more soul for you to use for your Cabrera when you call it out for your rearguard, or even with your Fernbow for its own Soul Blast for the additional power and drive that it can give to your Vanguard, or just for the once per turn Soul Blast that you need for Sieg to begin with. Plenty of soul build-up power in this deck altogether with the many different cards that we use for the lineup. And then for the rest of the grade 1s, 4 of the Sentinel being Palladium Zeal Dragon. If you want to run Elentari Sanctitude, you can always substitute a spot in. You just want to have some more consistent options for Cabrera in the deck to be able to call out and reveal different units with this deck as well. And then for the trigger lineup, we're going with the 7 criticals, so 3 copies of Dark Knight Soel and the 4 Blade Feather Dragons. They come up as an option just for the additional put into soul power or just building up soul for your additional units as well in the deck. So 7 critical adds to the pressure that you give your Vanguard and your back row center rearguard. If your opponent's going to block both of those attacks, you at least have the critical to then give to an additional rearguard in the front row that hasn't attacked yet. And for the next trigger lineup, the 4 draw trigger is just giving you more of a defense because you will eat away at your hand pretty easily with this deck, and keeping consistency in your hand is another big part of something you need to do to not lose against your opponent when you go on the defense, with the rest of the trigger lineup being the 4 heal triggers, being Healer of Heavenly Staff Arches, and the over trigger being the Amartanoa counterpart, being the Arbor Dragon of 100 Swords, with the same drive check ability for your rear guards as well. If you get this over trigger off your Vanguard, being able to provide the additional attack to your front row rear guards, and then also the back row rear guard that hasn't attacked yet, just gives you more and more drive trigger power, making it the ideal over trigger to use in this deck as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Big thanks once again to my buddy Anthony for letting me borrow his Gramgrace deck for the video. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.